2 more of the awesome USB coins.
Woo! Right here. Come on. Right side. Here. Woo! Right side. Don't worry about the camera. Right side. Come on. Stage right.
Worry about the camera.
Don't worry about the camera.
All right. So as he gets us up here, a friend of mine, Tony Robb, he's on Twitter, DA_667.
What the hell, man?
And I don't know, I've actually suggested to him several times that he should charge, like he should make his Twitter feed private and then charge for access. Because it's a threat feed essentially. So.
By the way, if y'all are interested in talking about that, I'll be around. It shouldn't be too hard to spot. I'm green and orange, so.
He's got the good booze.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Firetalks. I am Tony Robinson, or DA667. My talk is Confessions of the Malware Hunter. My obligatory Who Am I slide. My obligatory Who Am I slide. I am an individual who loves to do network security monitoring. That's most of my background. I am currently a senior security analyst for a rather large power holdings company. Which basically just meant to them was like, hey, here's the IDS, here's your creds. You can't do worse than what we have. Do what comes natural. I get all sorts of freedom. What is it, God? And my first confession is that I am an amateur malware hunter. So, this happened to me a couple of days ago. This is my greatest accomplishment. My Twitter feed that Rex was talking about, I've actually been classified as a social media threat by ESET. So I have So, moving on. What do you mean, amateur malware hunter? This isn't my day job. This isn't something I've been trained on. I don't spend days in a debugger and only debug. The pin talk, while I loved it, confused the hell out of me. I don't know idle at the back of my hand, and I don't have money for IDA Pro. So, I do it for fun anyhow. Let me show you some of the cool stuff that I found. Most of this talk's part of this talk is going to be cool stuff that I found just within the last year since I became a security analyst, and the other half is, how can you do this too, with limited knowledge or advanced knowledge? So, this particular slide, I have a lot of IDS sitting at the border on my network as everybody else. I get a lot of pro bots. I get a lot of systems trying to exploit old vulnerabilities, and even some of the new ones like shell shock. I see a lot of remote file inclusion attacks. The furthest screenshot all the way over there is a list of IRC bots in the channel, close to about 500 or so when shell shock was becoming a big thing. And actually, no wait, that was just after New Year's this year. I got a couple of hits on my IDS and was looking at that. So yes, there are 500 bots sitting in the channel waiting for commands. The top picture right there is the script that I pulled down just from looking at the IDS logs and determined where they're calling back to. And the bottom is my Twitter feed, and I'm telling everybody, hey, guess what? There's fun stuff here. Go say hi. So this is another one. This is a little bit more interesting because in addition to the IDS and NSM stuff, I do a little bit of Google dorking for fun too. Let's not get into the legalities of that. But I found interesting stuff by Google dorking that probably shouldn't have been there, and one of them was this. Show of hands, how many of you have seen silent instances of Cleaver reports? Okay, a couple of hands here and there. There another APT. The report came out a couple of months ago. By the way, APT drink. Came out a couple of months ago. They were coming out of Iran, and just for more or less just for fun, I was Google dorking for open anonymous FTP servers because apparently those are still a thing. It's 2015. And this was one of the results. I know that you can't see very well, unfortunately. Some of the file names are a little bit tiny. But this is an open FTP server on a hosting provider out of California. I worked with the hosting provider for an entire week for them to get their shit together, so to speak, and they decided to do nothing, so I started sifting through the data. One of the more interesting things that I found was a file called koc.rar. Hey, I opened that up. It is a full network map. It is a full enumeration of the AP domain for the Kuwaiti National Oil. And I was messing around with that for a little while, at which point I said, hey, the CFAA is the thing, I probably shouldn't be holding on to this. And I get a hold of the FBI through a couple of very good connections who are working the con. I love you very much. And got that reported to them 6 months before the silence report came out. And I was sitting on top of apparently an APT that dropped and never knew it. The next one that I have here is a little thing called Phantom Train. One of my buddies said, hey, I've got this malware. This is a very common thing with people who are on Blue Team Incident Response who this thing is infected with malware. Well, we don't have time to investigate what it is necessarily. We just need it off of our network. We need it off of our hosts. Somebody's like, well, I don't have the time to look at it. Here's a copy of what it is. Here's some PCAPs that I have. Why don't you have a look at it and tell me what it's doing? And this is all just straight up dynamic analysis. This was, it looks like some sort of a Zeus or a ZBot variant that actually uses Phantom.js to scrape, monitor user activity, scrape their credits. And as you can see in one of the photos there, it's a directory listing of a server. Those are the dependencies for Phantom.js and a bunch of the other tools that the malware uses and installs on systems. A lot of the stuff up here is just the command and control traffic, not encrypted, just saying, hey, you can get your dependencies here, you can talk to these guys for command and control. Some of the botnet controls will ask to proxy traffic off of it, or proxy your traffic to here so I can sniff everything that you're doing. It's a really nasty thing, and I wrote up a couple of NSM signatures for it and distributed those freely. And last but not least, one of my favorite ones, I named this one Operation Aluminum Night Party, because at the NSA can have ridiculous code names, so there are a bunch of actors out of China. China apparently likes to scan and break our crap all the time, and break in and take advantage of shitty passwords all over the place. So these particular actors, they like to use SSH brute forcing and other recently released vulnerabilities to access as many systems as they can. They drop something on there called HTTP file server and serve out a bunch of these binaries to just add to their botnet. These are just DDoS binaries and various other types. Well, another one of my friends said, hey, I found this. This is pretty interesting, and I had about 50 megs worth of executables sitting on one of these servers. If the very bottom corner there, you can't see the text very well. I apologize for that. Some of these are post-exploitation binaries that they had. That particular tool is called wsyscheck, and when it was dropped on the system, it would do a full profile of the system. Here are things that are registry run once keys. Here's your registry run keys. Here's your appinit DLLs. The ones that are highlighted in red right there, those are drivers that could be a threat to the attackers on the box, such as npf.sys that Wireshark uses, or Windows TCP dump. Stuff like procmon23.sys for process monitoring. So this is like a post-exploitation. I want to look at this box and I want to see if there's any threats to my operation sitting here. So I've been working a lot more with those tools, and I'm still trying to do some analysis on them. I don't have any free time, just like everybody else at this con, so the process is slow. The last one up in the corner there was kind of interesting too. That guy, CN Game Control, whatever they called it, it listens on port 8009, and when you try to connect to it with a web browser, it gives you a 404 page. You connect to it with Netcat, and you give it a password of pardon my French, but it would give you a backdoor shell. I was like, this is all done through dynamic analysis. So these are just a couple of fun projects I have found within the last year. Now I'm going to get into, I'm an amateur malware hunter, and so can you. We're going to make sonics. So what are the tools that you need to make sonics and be an amateur malware hunter? Cheap VPS, some version of an IDS, Snort or Suricata, or an environment or two, and you just need one of the analytics GUIs that are out there for free. There are tons of them available. And a little bit of honeypot software, coincidentally enough. Honeypots are a big thing, and I have a lot of fun with them. So we'll start with cheap VPS. A lot of VPS providers these days have super cheap solutions. The crappier they are, the more insecure your neighbors are, the more fun it is because you get to see the stuff that's attacking them. So, in my personal experience, some of the more interesting hosts are the ones that are more bent towards privacy, particularly Denmark and Germany. I hate Hetzner Online AG with a passion. I hate OVH with a passion because they both tend to host massive amounts of malware. And every so often I'll see something out of DigitalOcean and Linode and a couple of others here and there, but cheap is good, and if your neighbors are terrible, then you get to take full advantage of that and look at what they're doing. So the next part I'm going to go into, this page is just a pile of text on the screen. I don't expect you to memorize all these numbers. These slides will be available later. But my background is in NSM, and in addition to honeypots, I use a lot of NSM to do the hard lifting for me. If I get alerts, then I get PCAPs. If I get PCAPs, these are particular signatures or particular attacks that oftentimes include the payload with the attack itself. So that's something for me to take a look at, say, is this something new? Have I seen this before? Has anybody seen this before? And just go to town on it. Because oftentimes, they'll have, here's our remote file inclusion, I want you to get to this website. Well, why don't I get to that website myself and just pull down whatever you're asking me to? It's often that simple. So there's a couple of categories of rules that I had on the page. Again, there's shell shock. Everybody knows how vastly that's been exploited since it was announced. Another interesting one I see is PHP remote file inclusions. Those have been around since 2012. There are still servers that get hit with that a lot, and even better yet, still servers that get listed into command and control channels that haven't been patched, that are still vulnerable to that particular type of attack. The bottom two there, the bottom three there, generic icon injection and exploit kits, those are more if you have clients that you want to monitor, if you want to look for new exploit kits out there in the wild or interesting things going on in your users' web traffics. 9 times out of 10, when you see an exploit kit on the page, if it isn't obfuscate, isn't a boatload of Java obfuscation, it's some sort of an iframe on the page that's invisible or put in through before the doc type header on the page or something else of that nature that just shouldn't be there or just isn't right. And those are a huge list of IDS signatures provided by VRT or Talos or whatever the hell they're calling themselves these days that they give out for free along with the sort of IDS software. The bottom one is just kind of, if you know of any other vulnerabilities that are vastly exploited out in the wild, aside from MSO8 and every word known to man, just enable the rules for them and have it log the TCAPs. You will never know what you're going to get. I'm going to touch on honeypots a little bit here. Show of hands, who hasn't heard of it? I saw one. It's fast and easy, Python-based SSH honeypots. It's a good compromise between a high interaction honeypot and a low interaction honeypot, where you can't really emulate a whole lot of things. It's very customizable, it's easy to spin up, it's easy to run, and even better yet, it's very easy to modify to configure that fake SSH honeypot to have a profile of a different Linux host just as easy as modifying the kippo.config file and a couple of command output files that are included with the kippo project itself. Modify a few files, change your host profile, run SSH attack V to get whatever version of SSH your server is running and dump that into the config file, and hey, it looks, instead of looking like a generic Debian 5 box, like a default kippo install, you look like an Ubuntu 14.04 box, just like that. A couple of other honeypots I've been working with. I messed with Glassop a little bit, just very recently. I've been messing with it. And Glassop is a web-based honeypot. It's kind of interesting. It injects a bunch of interesting words and text output into the middle of the web page to cause web tools to freak out and interact with them more interestingly. They'll say, hey, I want to access /PMA. Well, hey, /PMA is right here. Why don't we have fun? And there is another guy by the name of Pete Brinkster on Twitter. That's his handle, who started an XRDP honeypot. XRDP is just a port of remote desktop protocol to Linux. The only difference in this version is that it's more or less been hamstrung to where it will never authenticate properly. It will log IP addresses, usernames, passwords used, and also the keyword mappings for people trying to hit your remote desktop honeypots. A lot of fun. At the end of the talk here, I had a couple of fun links, a couple of other posts that I have written up about doing automated Snort installations through other tools that I wrote, using Snort as a part of your intelligence platform or your honeypots, using that information that you have to augment your amateur malware hunting. A little bit of information here on Kippo, on making Kippo more believable, and just generic malware triage. Feel free to go ahead and take a look at them later. Once again, I'll have the slides out there. And have fun being an amateur malware hunter with me.
Is the blue text any easier to read close up?
I'm sorry. You want me to go back to this, to the blue text?
It's totally legible from back here.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You said you're posting the slides, right?
Yes, I will be posting the slides online. If you have a Twitter account that is @TA_667, I will post a link to those slides. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for having me, and I want to thank Rex for inviting me to come up and talk.